My name is Nyles Bauer, and my problem originated in Tucson, Arizona, and moved up to Olympia, Washington, to the Thurston County Family Court System. In Tucson, Arizona, I married my wife, and we had a son. And she began binge drinking and threatening our son and threatening me and just beating the crap out of me. And I've never initiated it. It was just during her drinking sprees. Anyway, I mean, it got as bad as her attacking the Tucson police officers that would come over to stop her violence. She once went up to our son and put a shard of glass up to his neck and threatened to kill him and then kill herself. And I managed to talk her down off of that. Got her to see a psychiatrist, got her mental help, got her on medication. She seemed fine, and then she said medications for weak people, and began attacking her new boyfriend and just everybody she ran into. And she'd do it spontaneously. She didn't care if it was in the middle of an airport or in the privacy of a home. She didn't care if it was our son or me or the police. She had no fear of violence, of initiating violence. Anyway, Tucson, Arizona, the court was very fair. I was awarded full custody of my son because of the violence, because of the documented violence. And things were going well until my wife showed up once, my ex-wife showed up once and showed up drunk, grabbed my son, and made a run for it. And it took months for me to track her down. Eventually I found her, actually CPS found her in Michigan. And because I spent so much time looking for my ex-wife, looking for my son specifically, I missed a lot of schooling. I was doing my PhD in immunology at the time. My mother, who lives in Olympia, Washington, said, well, since you're up in the area, drop him by here. I'll watch him for a while. You go work on your degree. And that's what I did. So I go work on the degree. But I did most of that in Olympia, Washington, so that I could be with my son most of the time. And when I had to, for examinations, for dissertation work, I'd fly down to Arizona and go to the University of Arizona there to finish up certain aspects of my research. During that time, my ex-wife found an attorney and refiled the custody issue up here in Olympia, which she has every right to do after 6 months, and that's fine. The problem is that when she grabbed my son, there were 2 active warrants for her arrest, still 2 active warrants for her arrest out of Arizona. If somebody's on the run with a child or on the run from abusing a child, which is the warrants are directly related to that, then another court cannot claim jurisdiction under the current laws, national laws. They claimed jurisdiction. I recorded some of the dialogue from Commissioner Schaller, who was the acting judge in our case, placed it on YouTube. She was asking to be appointed to the Superior Court, the criminal division, as a full judge rather than a commissioner. The governor had to appoint the new judge. I called the governor's office, told the governor to please look at the video on YouTube. Her office, Governor Gregoire's office, assured me that they looked at it and they're considering it when they appoint the judge to the Superior Court. Commissioner Schaller was overwhelmingly the favorite by by all the members of the Bar Association. She was in the lead. She basically seemed like it was a sure bet. The governor passed her over, just didn't appoint her. Subsequently, she won in an election, but at that point, yeah, she was passed over. It was at that point that things really got bad, and I was thrown in jail for the greater part of a year. No hearing, no bail, no attorney, in fact, until I believe a month before I was due to be released. And when I say due to be released, that would be under the assumption that I had a hearing and was sentenced to the maximum. It was my first ever misdemeanor, and I spent a year. And I was the only person in the jail out of hundreds and hundreds of people that came by, were processed through the jail, criminals or people arrested were processed through the jail. I was the only person that was in that position of having no hearing, no bail, and nothing, and sitting there the entire time. And they taught me, they'd say, okay, well, your hearing's next week. It's like, okay, this is great. Because I had video evidence showing that, well, showing the circumstances, showing her violence, recent violence. That was never considered. It never made it before a judge. I never made it before a judge. When I finally was taken before a judge, it wasn't my attorney. I tried to tell the judge this, and the judge told me to shut up, that if I talked, I'd be held in contempt of court and serve some more time. He said anything I wanted to say had to be through my attorney. Of course, the message I was trying to say was that that was not my attorney. He pled guilty on my behalf, which makes no sense. If you're at the end of a sentence, you can plead whatever you want. Why would anybody plead guilty? You've served your sentence. I could have pled fuzzy puppies and been out at the same amount of time. I certainly wouldn't plead guilty. That's what was entered. It's just been horrible. I haven't seen my son in nearly 2 years. There are no claims against me of violence or abuse. The court here has found that I've been responsible not for violence, but for somehow forcing my ex-wife's violence. Of course, if the gender roles were reversed, that would never fly in a court. And that's the equivalent of saying that a woman forced a rape because she was dressed provocatively. I mean, thankfully that went out in I'm figuring the 1960s was the last time that was brought up in court. And to do this to me, to anybody, to claim that I forced somebody else's violence is just absolute insanity, especially in light of the evidence, which is being totally overlooked in this court. The court has no jurisdiction. They've clearly shown that they have no respect for the law. They're acting under the color of the law, not the law itself. And they will not accept motions from me, and they will not accept oral testimony from me. Every time I try to present something orally to the court, they say it needs to be written. Every time I try to present something written to the court, it just sits there for a week and gets handed back to me. Obviously, it's a biased court, prejudiced court. I miss my son. My son's the most important thing to me in my life. And there's not a day that goes by that I'm not absolutely devastated, tormented, tortured. And he's in an abusive house, in a house with a woman who claimed she was going to kill him several times. She beats her boyfriend. I met her boyfriend recently. He's a nice guy. Met him at the supermarket. He claimed that he gets beaten by her. And she's crazy. She'll come out with knives. She doesn't care. Pots and pans. He's beaten by her, but he says that it's only when he deserves to be beaten, which again, when does anybody deserve to be beaten? I mean, if there's an issue, call the police. If there's not an issue, there shouldn't be any violence. But there certainly shouldn't be any violence in front of my son, which there is. And he's told me this, and this is also on YouTube, which greatly upsets the lawyers, lawyer Paul Batten, whose wife is in the Attorney General's office. I believe she's second in the line from the Attorney General himself, a state Attorney General. It's all, when I say it's a conspiracy, that's not a paranoid thing. For me to remain in court, for me to remain in jail for nearly a full year requires at least that 3 people ignore the case at hand. And just by ignoring it means they got together and they decided, all right, we're going to ignore this case. And that's the prosecutor, the attorney, and the judge. I wrote them all numerous times saying, look, I'm not getting a court date. Didn't change anything. Obviously, I mean, in the legal sense, that's a conspiracy. 2 or more people plotting against someone or something else. What would I ask? I would ask that the legislators of the state, I would ask that whoever can help, please help. I mean, I'm being victimized. My son is being victimized. If somebody were to look at the records, they'd see this clearly. Nobody will look at the records. I've contacted everybody from Oprah to Rush Limbaugh, from legislators to the president, literally, to the Department of Justice. Nobody cares. Nobody's doing anything. And I have no recourse. When the judicial system is breaking the law, is not maintaining justice, then you've got no place to fall back on. There's no safety net for you, at least in the family court. People say, oh, well, you can sue them. Well, you can't sue them. Every lawyer I've talked to do a civil rights case wants about $100,000. This court has drained me of everything I own, destroyed my career, ruined my family. Yeah, I would ask that that the family court in Thurston County specifically for me, that they be required to rule on evidence, give evidence priority over hearsay. If somebody comes in and says, well, he forced my violence, I think that should take a back seat to having 2 warrants for your arrest over violence, for having documented history of violence from the police, from attacking the police themselves. And that's what I would ask. Thanks.